I've never considered myself an easily frightened person. At least, not until that weekend. Back then, I was in my final year of college. I needed a quiet place to finish an important project, somewhere far from the city, far from distractions, far from people. After hours of scrolling through Airbnb listings, I found a small cabin in rural Montana. It sat alone in the middle of the woods. The nearest neighbor was miles away, exactly what I was looking for. The price was surprisingly cheap. So cheap, I probably should have questioned it, but I didn't. 3 days later, I arrived. The sky was gray, and the deeper I drove into the back roads, the weaker my phone signal became, until eventually, it disappeared completely. The cabin sat at the end of a long dirt road, old, weathered, but not abandoned, more like a place that time had simply forgotten. When I arrived, a man in his 60s was waiting on the porch. He smiled. At the time, it seemed friendly. Looking back now, it didn't. He introduced himself as Alan, the host. We talked for a few minutes about the weather. Nothing unusual. Then he handed me the key and said something I didn't think much about at the time. "I'll be around until sunset, then I'll head out." That was it. Just a simple sentence, or so I thought. I carried my bags inside. The cabin was clean, old but clean. Downstairs was a living room, kitchen, and bathroom. Upstairs were 2 bedrooms connected by a narrow hallway. Everything seemed normal. At first. Around 7 that evening, I heard a car engine outside. I looked through the window. Alan's truck slowly drove away. I watched it disappear between the trees. Then it was gone. The cabin was mine now, or at least, that's what I believed. That night, I worked on my laptop for several hours. Around 11, I decided to go to bed. A light rain had started outside. The sound of water tapping against the roof was strangely relaxing. I was almost asleep when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Step. 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 Coming from the hallway upstairs. I froze. Maybe the house was settling. Maybe old wood was expanding in the cold. Corner. Every closet. No one was there. Eventually, I convinced myself it had been my imagination. I returned to bed, but around 3 in the morning, I woke up again. This time because of a different sound. Something heavy being dragged across the floor downstairs. A chair. A box. Something. Slowly scraping across wood. I didn't investigate. I stayed in bed until sunrise. The next morning, I tried to ignore everything, made coffee, opened my laptop, focused on work. Around noon, I noticed one of the kitchen cabinets standing open. I was certain I had closed it the night before. Still, I brushed it off. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I was tired. Then came the second night. And that's when everything changed. Around 10 o'clock, I was sitting in the living room when I heard footsteps again. Clear. Unmistakable. Someone was upstairs, walking from room to room. Slowly. Like they knew the house. Like they belonged there. My heart immediately started racing. I grabbed my phone. Still no signal. Not even a single bar. For the first time, I considered leaving. But outside, a storm was moving in. The roads were dark. The nearest town was nearly an hour away. So I decided to check. I grabbed a flashlight and headed upstairs. The footsteps stopped.
Instantly, silence. The entire hallway was empty. I checked both bedrooms. Nothing. No one. Then I noticed something strange. At the far end of the hallway was a small door, low to the ground, almost hidden. I was certain I hadn't seen it before. I pointed my flashlight toward it, slowly reached for the handle, and opened it. Behind the door was darkness, and a narrow staircase leading downward. Far downward, lower than the main floor. The Airbnb listing had never mentioned a basement. Yet there it was. For a moment, I just stared. Then curiosity overcame fear. I started descending. The air grew colder with every step. The smell of damp wood filled my lungs. When I reached the bottom, I found a small hidden room, and instantly knew something was wrong. Very wrong. There was a bed, a half-empty bottle of water, stacks of canned food, a desk lamp, and mounted on the wall, 4 surveillance monitors. My bedroom, the living room, the kitchen, even the bathroom hallway. The entire cabin was being watched. I felt my stomach drop. Someone had been living there, watching guests, for a long time. Then I noticed a notebook sitting on the desk. Inside were names, dates,
Pages and pages of handwritten observations, sleep schedules, daily routines, favorite foods, personal habits. Every guest had a file. Every guest had been studied. Then I reached the final page. My page. My name. My arrival date. And detailed notes describing things I had done during the past 2 days. Things no stranger should have known. My hands started shaking. And that's when I heard a door opening behind me. Slowly, I turned around and saw Alan standing in the darkness, watching me, not speaking, not moving, just staring. Then he smiled. The same smile from the first day. Only now, it felt completely different, completely wrong. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then he finally spoke, calmly, almost casually. Most people don't find this place so quickly. My brain couldn't process what was happening. He was supposed to be gone. I had watched him leave. I had seen his truck disappear. So how was he here? How long had he been here? Suddenly, my body reacted before my mind could. I threw the flashlight at him, turned, and ran. I sprinted up the stairs 2 at a time. Behind me, I heard him shout. For the first time, he sounded angry. Really angry. I reached the hallway, then the main staircase, then the front door. I burst outside into the storm. Rain slammed against my face. I ran toward my car. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. Finally, I unlocked the door, jumped inside, locked everything, and started the engine.
As I pulled away, I looked toward the porch. Alan wasn't chasing me. He wasn't running. He was simply standing there, watching, as if he knew something I didn't. I drove straight to town and didn't look back. The next morning, I returned with the police. The hidden room was still there. The cameras were still there. The notebook was still there. But Alan was gone. No clothes. No identification. No fingerprints. Nothing. It was as if he had vanished. The investigation lasted for weeks. And eventually, detectives uncovered something disturbing. The name Alan wasn't real. The photograph used in the Airbnb profile belonged to someone else. The identity was fake. The records were fake. Everything about him was fake. Except the room, the cameras, and the notebook. Those were very real. Airbnb removed the listing. The case remained open. But they never found him. Months passed. Life slowly returned to normal. Eventually, I convinced myself it was over. Then one night, around 2 a.m, I received an email. No subject line. No sender name. Just a single attached image. I opened it and instantly felt my blood run cold. It was a photograph of my apartment building, taken from outside, at night. The image was recent. I knew because a security light installed only a week earlier was clearly visible. But the photograph wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the message written underneath. Just one sentence. The same sentence Alan had spoken in that hidden room. Most people don't find this place so quickly. I didn't sleep that night. In fact, I barely slept for weeks afterward. Because for the first time, I realized something. Maybe I never escaped that cabin. Maybe he simply decided to let me leave.